The killer was steps away. Everyone thought they were safe. Imagine a street just like yours. Children ride bikes on the sidewalk. Neighbors wave over white picket fences. This was Maple Creek Lane. It was the picture of suburban peace. People moved there for the quiet, the good schools, the feeling of security. No one ever locked their doors. Why would they? Nothing bad ever happened in Maple Creek. It was a community built on trust. Everyone knew everyone else's name, or so they thought. Our story centers on two people. Sarah Jenkins, a kind-hearted elementary school teacher. The man next door, Arthur Blackwood, he was a quiet man, a bit of a loner. He kept to himself, but he was always polite. No one knew much about him. A simple, unassuming sedan. He mowed his lawn every Saturday, like clockwork. They would replay every brief interaction, every fleeting glance. Arthur Blackwood, the perfect neighbor hiding monstrous secrets behind an ordinary door. Life in Maple Creek was defined by its predictable rhythms. The smell of freshly cut grass would fill the air on weekend mornings. This comforting routine was the bedrock of their community. It was a manufactured reality, a carefully constructed bubble of peace. It made them see what they wanted to see. His lack of social engagement was viewed as a personal choice. Looking back, the neighbors would remember small, odd details. They would sometimes hear faint, rhythmic noises from his garage. Another oddity was his meticulous, almost obsessive routine with his trash cans. You could set your watch by Arthur and his trash cans, she had said with a laugh. Then there was the garden. One neighbor noticed that he spent an unusual amount of time digging and then filled them back in a day or two later. Arthur had mumbled something about improving the soil drainage. They didn't know that the fertilizer served a dual purpose. One far more sensational than encouraging grass to grow. It was the line between light and darkness, between openness and secrecy, between life and death. It started as a whisper on the wind, a strange, unpleasant smell that would come and go. But the smell didn't go away. It grew stronger, more pervasive. The smell seemed strongest between Sarah Jenkins's bright blue house and Arthur Blackwood's sterile brown one. Did you smell that? It's getting worse. The simple, innocent explanations began to wear thin. The person who finally acted was Martha, an elderly woman who lived across the street. She had been a close friend of Sarah Jenkins for years. It had been 3 days now. 3 days without seeing Sarah tending her roses. She walked over and knocked on the blue front door. No answer. There was an intensity in his gaze that made Martha shiver. The sight solidified her fear.
"I'd like to report a missing person," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "My neighbor. Her name is Sarah Jenkins."
The call from Martha set the official wheels in motion. To the officers, he seemed like just another neighbor, awkward but not suspicious. The next day, the smell was worse than ever. It was the smell of death. The detective's attention was drawn to the fence, specifically to a patch of ground on Arthur's side. He secured the area. A forensics team was called in. The man they knew as their quiet, reclusive neighbor stood on his porch, watching the proceedings with an unnerving calm. The unthinkable had been found. It was a body. They soon realized it wasn't just one. There were more. The fertilizer Arthur used so liberally. He wasn't trying to make grass grow. He was using the high nitrogen compounds to accelerate the decomposition process. His attempt to cover his tracks had inadvertently created the primary clue. The lead detective approached the brown house.
"Arthur Blackwood," he said, his voice steady. "You are under arrest for the murder of Sarah Jenkins."
He offered no resistance. The sharp, metallic click of the handcuffs echoed across the silent street. He walked past the grave his own hands had dug, his face still a mask of indifference. The arrest was over, but the nightmare for the residents of Maple Creek Lane had only just begun. It turned out that Sarah was not his only victim. The shallow grave in his backyard held the remains of two other individuals. The quiet, unassuming man from the brown house was not just a murderer. He was a serial killer. The garage was a soundproofed chamber of horrors and a collection of personal items belonging to the victims. He had preyed on their trust, using his non-threatening appearance to his advantage. The trial of Arthur Blackwood became a media sensation.
"We never suspected a thing," one neighbor said, her voice breaking. "He just seemed so normal, so harmless."
His actions, they argued, were not the product of a disordered mind, but of a cold, calculating, and patient predator.
The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
Arthur Blackwood's reaction to the verdict was the same as his reaction to everything else. Nothing. Sentence him to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Arthur Blackwood would spend the rest of his natural life behind bars. The brown house was eventually sold, but it remained a dark monument to what had happened. Neighbors no longer left their doors unlocked. They looked at each other with a new, subtle suspicion. The trust that had once been the bedrock of their community was gone. The shadow of Arthur Blackwood lingered, a permanent stain on the neighborhood's sunny disposition. But even after the structure is gone, the memory of what happened on that patch of land will remain, a ghost story that is all too real. It teaches us that evil does not always have a recognizable face. It can be quiet, it can be polite. How well do we truly know the people who live beside us? We overlook the small oddities. We overlook the red flags. The residents of Maple Creek Lane felt a collective unease. These feelings, these gut instincts, were the truth trying to break through the facade. So we leave you with this final thought. Do we sometimes overlook potential danger simply because it is too close? Because it is too familiar? Have you ever had a gut feeling that something was wrong even when everything looked right?